Welcome to the Alaska Weather Show. I'm Peter Chan, your host this evening on this Monday, November 15th, 2021. And if you'd like additional weather information, you can always go to weather.gov/Alaska. We have plenty of information to share online. A lot is going on in the weather headlines. A wind chill advisory has been issued for the Susitna Valley, especially the upper portions, Broad Pass area, for Tuesday evening on through Thursday afternoon. Wind chills could be as cold as 35 to approaching 50 below zero in that time frame as we get some stronger gap winds or outflow winds develop on the backside of a low pressure that will be getting organized on Tuesday in through the central Gulf. Winter storm warning now has been issued for Yakutat, Haines, and Skagway. At least 5 to 9 inches of snow anticipated in those areas, with locally higher amounts near or a bit above a foot in some of the higher elevations. A winter weather advisory also has been issued for the inner southeast panhandle around Hyder. The intercoastal mountains there could pick up several inches of snow. Otherwise, generally the central parts of the panhandle are looking at 1 to 3 inches of snow, maybe 2 to 4 inches around Pelican and the Mendenhall Valley. And we're going to see cold weather continue statewide, though it could end up being a little drier here as we head through mid-month on up through November 25th. Here's a webcam image from Broad Pass. The wind chill advisory is going to be in effect there for Tuesday evening on through Thursday morning. So look for the winds to be picking up there and running down the length of the Susitna Valley all the way down toward Willow, Scylla areas. And then Haines, winter storm watch has been upgraded to a winter storm warning, and we're looking at least 6 to 10 inches of snow in the Haines area, maybe some higher amounts on up in the higher elevations. Here is the hazardous weather map showing the winter storm warnings there for Yakutat on over toward Haines and Skagway. And then also in the far southeast there at Hyder, where several inches of snow will fall before the precipitation mixes with rain, and we're going to see that warmer air come back inland through the panhandle. Back to the west, though, those colder outflow winds will set up on the backside of the low, and as they come up out of the north and then turn northwesterly, you could see some rather strong gap winds coming in through Cook Inlet too, and I'll show you that in a moment. Heaviest precipitation is going to fall Tuesday into Wednesday. You can see it's centered on areas especially around and east of Yakutat. That's why the winter storm warning is in effect, because it's going to fall mainly as snow. The cold air is in place there, and it's going to take a little while longer for the milder air to transition inland there. Further, though, near the outer coast, the duration of snow will be shorter because the changeover to rain will be faster. And then looking at the winds Tuesday afternoon, not really, they're picking up along the panhandle coast. There could be some low-level turbulence for aviation interest, especially later Tuesday afternoon and evening as stronger winds push there. And then as the low gets better organized in the backside circulation, we'll get those stronger winds running down the length of the Susitna Valley and Cook Inlet as we go through Tuesday night through Wednesday and early Thursday. In fact, by Wednesday morning, we could see some storm force to maybe even near hurricane force gusts between Homer and Kodiak out there at the mouth of Cook Inlet around the Barrier Islands, so keep that in mind. Otherwise, on the satellite imagery, curl in the clouds there near Haida Gwaii. Weak low pressure circulation is sliding away. Another weak low off the Kenai, but more importantly, you see the clouds southeast of Sandpoint, south of Kodiak Island. That is that low taking shape, and it'll get better organized overnight into Tuesday as it drifts northeastward up into the central Gulf. Right now, though, we have high pressure extending from the Arctic Ocean north of the Russian coast through the Bering on over to Kotzebue Sound and through the northern interior into northwest Canada. And even though this high pressure is in place, we get the low-level inversions that can trap some moisture, a little bit of low stratus, ice fog, or some pockets of very light snow and flurries. Otherwise, cold air, cold air. 33 below this morning at Bettles, and they'll be down around that mark there as long as skies stay clear again tonight. The Arctic air is pressed all the way down to the tip of the Alaska Peninsula, out through the eastern and into the central Bering. We see the stationary front because the Bering, those relatively warmer waters of the Bering and North Pacific, act as a natural barrier for the Arctic air to press as far south as fast. and it's allowing that storm to spin up along this frontal boundary just southeast of Kodiak Island. So Tuesday afternoon, the low will be drifting up toward the north central Gulf with the moisture pushing onshore through the Panhandle. Snows will be cranking up across the northern Panhandle, especially through the later afternoon and evening, and eventually some warmer air late Tuesday night into Wednesday morning will start to encroach there along the western portion of the Panhandle into the inner canals there through the central and southern areas by Wednesday morning and Wednesday afternoon. That low will continue to spin there in the Gulf, and we can expect on the backside of it cold north-northwest flow on the backside of the low. Low temperatures Tuesday morning will generally stay just above freezing in the southern Panhandle, but 16 up there around Skagway and Haines, and as we get out toward Glen Ellen and McGrath, lows will be 15 to 20 below zero. Tuesday afternoon highs could still be up near 40 at Sitka and Craig and Ketchikan, but as you get toward the interior, only three below at McGrath and for Glen Ellen as the cold air is in place there across the interior. Wednesday morning lows will be down near zero at Anchorage, even 10 below at Kenai, and down as we get toward King Salmon. Otherwise, as we go through the day, Wednesday afternoon temperatures should moderate it back up around or just above 40 there in the Panhandle, allowing the precipitation to mix with and change over to some rain. But the cold air stays across the southeast interior and the inner areas of the southwest interior. Cold across the northern and central portions of the state. Lows tonight and generally in the 15 to 30 below range. Single digits above and below zero along the Arctic coast and Seward Peninsula coast. And then Tuesday afternoon highs remain sub-zero throughout the Yukon Valley, either side of the Alaska and Brooks ranges, with single digits along the Arctic coast. Again, low temperatures, teens and 20s below zero Wednesday morning. Isolated 30 below reading not out of the question. Temperatures may moderate just a slight bit. Highs generally, though, near or below zero throughout the Yukon Valley, especially along the south slope of the Brooks Range. And the inner portion of the interior southwest cold, lows well below zero, 10 to 20 below. Temperatures above freezing as you get out toward the tip of the Alaska Peninsula, past False Pass and through the Aleutians. And then Wednesday morning lows will be back down into the areas 15 to near or 20 below. Aniak could be around 25 below. And then high temperatures only near zero in the southwest interior, teens to single digits along the coast, and generally upper 30s to mid 40s extending out through the Alaska Peninsula and the Aleutians. Here's the temperature outlook November 21st through the 25th. Temperatures will average below normal statewide, especially centered on the west side of the state. But precipitation should average below normal in the west, so maybe a little drier conditions than normal. Meanwhile, the southeast continues to see above normal precipitation.
And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
Now here's your aviation weather. If you have a flight planned for Tuesday into Wednesday, the main weather player will be an area of low pressure taking shape over the Gulf of Alaska, and that's going to push a plume of moisture up again into the Panhandle, into the North Coast areas, especially from around McCarthy through Yakutat on over toward Haines, Skagway, White Pass. Several inches of snow, 6 inches or more. A few spots locally over a foot of snow could fall, especially as we go through Tuesday afternoon through Wednesday afternoon. Further out across the interior, high pressure is in place with cold air continuing to seep southward. That's going to create some stronger gap winds across portions of the Alaska Range and through the southwest. So keep that in mind as well if you are flying through any of the passes. IFR conditions will be spreading from the Gulf up into the Panhandle by Tuesday afternoon and become entrenched for Tuesday night and early Wednesday. We have a pocket of IFR up there along the northwestern portion of the North Slope. And then back out toward the western central Aleutians, a weaker frontal system will be working its way eastward by Wednesday morning. Maybe a little bit in a relaxation of the IFR conditions in the Panhandle, but they will come back down again as we go into the afternoon. Look for widespread IFR conditions Wednesday afternoon throughout the Panhandle and west of Yakutat toward McCarthy in that area. And then up to the north, a pocket of IFR there along the North Slope, as well as back out through the eastern and western Aleutians. So past conditions on Tuesday will generally be MVFR through AKwx Pass, but look for VFR conditions the further south you go from the south entrance. Same thing there for Adigan, MVFR conditions throughout the pass, but VFR conditions if you fly farther south from the south entrance. Lake Clark and Merrill will generally hold on to VFR conditions, but again, rather on the backside of that Gulf low, there are going to be winds picking up out of the northeast and north and eventually turning northwesterly, so that could create some gap winds. And as we round the Alaska range, Rainy Pass will see VFR conditions as well, as will Windy and Isabel. And then as we go further east, Mentasta should hold on to VFR conditions. And down toward Tanita, VFR conditions will prevail, but the further east you go from the east entrance, look for MVFR conditions there on Tuesday. And also for Portage, generally VFR conditions are anticipated through the pass, but if you're flying further east out over Prince William Sound, look for MVFR conditions. And Chilkoot and White there in the northern panhandle, we'll see conditions deteriorate on Tuesday, MVFR becoming IFR by afternoon, and certainly as we go into Tuesday night with areas of heavier precipitation, including some heavier snowfall, especially in there through the north. Freezing levels Tuesday morning are at the surface down the outer areas of the panhandle around Craig, Sitka, and then cutting across the Alaska Peninsula around Colt Bay, and then extending out through the eastern Bering to just southwest there of St. Matthew. Greatest threat for some icing Tuesday will come later in the day, especially afternoon and evening, as that low gets better organized and the precipitation shield expands northeastward. We do expect icing conditions to increase along the Gulf Coast, especially there along the Panhandle, again, as we go through late afternoon and especially Tuesday evening between 3,000 and 15,000 feet. A look at the upper level jet stream winds. We have upper level circulation low there out over the eastern Brooks Range in the northeast part of the state. Ahead of it, a core of 105 knot winds at 30,000 feet from the southwest pushing up into the lower panhandle. On the backside, we have winds circulating around the low from the northwest out over the west side of the state, 60 to 70 knots or so. And then dropping down to 9,000 feet, we see a core of 50 to 60 knot winds pushing in through the panhandle as the Gulf flow gets better defined. And then on the backside, we have winds that are out of the northwest and north there, extending along the west coast, 40 to 45 knots. And then finally down to 3,000 foot level, we have low pressure circulation over the north central Gulf with winds ahead of it, 50 to 55 knots that push up into the panhandle. That'll definitely translate to some significant turbulence there for the panhandle Tuesday afternoon, and back out along the west side of the state, 35 to 40 knot winds. So looking at areas of turbulence, the most pronounced will be moving into the panhandle, the outer coastal areas there in the late afternoon and evening, surface to 4,000 feet with isolated severe turbulence possible. Other pockets of moderate turbulence there in the southwest, the northwest, including the Seward Peninsula, and then back out the western half of the Aleutian chain.
Can be many miles long, from 1 to 100 feet high, traveling at 400 miles per hour. This ocean monster is known as a tsunami, and it can wreak havoc on coastal populations and landscapes. A tsunami is a series of ocean waves caused by any large and sudden disturbance of the sea surface. Tsunamis can be generated by landslides, volcanic eruptions, or even meteorite impacts in the ocean, but they are most often caused by an earthquake where there's a sudden displacement of the ocean floor. When that happens, there's a transfer of energy from the sea floor to the ocean, causing waves on the surface to radiate outward in all directions. In deep waters, these waves may not even be detectable. But when the tsunami enters shallower waters, the wave speed slows and its height increases. The water along the coast may recede noticeably. A large wall of turbulent water, called a bore, may also form. When the tsunami hits, it may come ashore like a fast-rising flood and strike with devastating force. The series of waves may continue for hours. The first one may not be the last or the largest. For your safety, know the potential warning signs of an incoming tsunami. A strong earthquake that causes difficulty standing. A rapid rise or fall of the water along the coast. A loud ocean roar. When you're in a coastal area, it's important to keep alert for messages from local officials, such as lifeguards, police, the U.S. Tsunami Warning Centers, and NOAA All Hazards Radio. If you find yourself in a location of a tsunami strike, here's what you need to do to stay safe. Keep calm. Walk or run to higher ground, 100 feet above sea level or 1 mile inland. Do not drive. Keep roads open for emergency vehicles. If you cannot move to higher ground, use the stairs to get to the 3rd floor or higher in a sturdy building. Follow all instructions from local officials and stay out of coastal areas until authorities issue an all clear. Tsunamis can strike any coastline in the world and can affect locations thousands of miles away from where they formed. They may be uncommon, but the devastation they cause makes them a deadly force in nature. Please go to the following sites.
Tsunami, a killer wave, speeding across the ocean at 400 miles an hour. It smashes into land, destroying everything in its path. Tsunamis do not have a season, but they can strike any coast at any time. If one forms close to the shore, the shaking of the earth and a loud roar may warn of its approach. But when a tsunami forms across the ocean, it can take hours to reach the shore, enough time to warn people to move to higher land. Over the past 20 years, NOAA has developed DART, a real-time monitoring system that provides data for forecasting tsunamis. The DART systems have been deployed in earthquake-prone areas throughout the ocean, including the Pacific and Indian basins. A DART system combines a surface buoy and a sensor on the ocean floor. This sensor detects changes in water pressure and seismic activity and transmits the data back to the surface. If these changes indicate a tsunami may form, the buoy signals an alert via satellite to the tsunami warning centers in Alaska and Hawaii. Back at the centers, scientists plug the data into pre-existing models. These models predict the height, the arrival time, and the coastal locations that the tsunami will hit. Watches and warnings are issued to the affected communities so preparations can begin. Today, 47 DART stations are positioned all around the world, ready to detect and warn coastal communities about the next potential tsunami. With the DART system and tsunami warning centers in place, we are now better prepared to predict a killer wave before it strikes.
December 26, 2004. What began as an undersea earthquake in the Indian Ocean ended as the most deadly tsunami in recorded history. array is now complete, with 39 buoys operated by the National Weather Service's National Data Buoy Center. Along with 21 international buoys, this array can measure a tsunami wave as small as 1 centimeter in the open ocean and provide these data in real time to forecast when a tsunami may hit the coast and how much flooding there will be. NOAA scientists and engineers are currently testing the 4th-generation DART buoy that will be able to measure local tsunamis as well as distant ones. Flooding forecast models incorporate local topography and historical tsunami data in order to more accurately predict exactly how a tsunami might behave when it reaches shore. NOAA has 75 site-specific models that can provide high-resolution flooding forecasts for effective response and mitigation during a tsunami event. NOAA has gathered data from every tsunami since 2004 to improve its forecast models. Today, it operates the world's only real-time tsunami flooding forecast system using DART data to accurately compute flooding forecasts. The NOAA Tsunami Warning Centers make tsunami data available on the internet and issue advisories, watches, and warnings through the Emergency Alert System and via NOAA weather radios. While it is impossible to prevent a tsunami, we are now much better prepared to detect them and predict their paths and impacts, so those in coastal communities can take the steps necessary to safely protect themselves.
And now, marine weather around Alaska.
Welcome back, and now we're into the home stretch of our show. We start with today's sea ice edge, and the ice is extensive along the Arctic coast. It's also building up rather rapidly through the Chukchi Sea, and will continue to do so as the cold air is really entrenched with high-pressure ridge extending from eastern Russia and coastal areas of northern Russia all the way across the northern half of the state into northwest Canada. We'll also see the ice building along the southwest coast, the YK deltas down into Bristol Bay, and this will only continue as the cold air will remain in place here. It looks like at least up through near the end of the month. For Tuesday's marine forecast for the inner canals, winds will be south-southeast 30-35 knots, Ketchikan up toward Petersburg, waves 6-7 feet. Still north winds, Lynn Canal 4-footers. Along the outer coast there of the Gulf, 35 knot south winds with waves of 13-14 feet. And then on Wednesday, look for the inner canals to have southerly winds upwards to 25 knots, waves generally 5-6 feet, could be 8 feet around Dixon Entrance. And then southwesterly winds along the outer coast of the Gulf, 25 to 30 knots, waves generally running 12 to 16 feet. On Tuesday, south central areas will see northeasterly winds, strongest there lower Cook Inlet and off the Kenai and Kodiak, with waves as high as 9 to 10 feet in the lower portion of Cook Inlet, 3 feet though in Prince William Sound. And then on Wednesday, we see some really stronger gap winds with the low situated over the North Gulf, 55 knot storm force winds there. Barren Islands there between Homer and Kodiak, with potentially some gusts approaching hurricane force. Winds not quite as strong further up there, the north end of the Cook Inlet or across the Prince William Sound, with winds out of the north at 25 knots, 4-foot waves. On Tuesday, Kodiak Island will see winds out of the northeast, 25 to 30 knots, waves 10-12 feet. And as we go on the Bering side of the Alaska Peninsula, north winds 20 to 25 knots, waves 6 to 8 feet. And for Wednesday, winds are going to turn a little more from north to northwest. You can see northwesterly gales off of Kodiak Island with waves up to 12 feet. North winds on the Bering side, 20 knots, waves 4 to 6 feet. Across the Aleutian chain on Tuesday, a mixed bag, winds holding up around 20-25 knots in many cases. Waves 7 to 10 feet on the North Pacific side, 6 to 8 feet on the Bering side, except as you get west of Adak, waves a little higher. Winds are going to turn more to the east-southeast across the eastern half of the Aleutians from Adak on through Dutch Harbor on Wednesday, with waves 6 to 8 feet on the Pacific side and 5 to 6 feet on the Bering side. Across the west coast, winds will generally be out of the northeast around 20 knots or so, 15 to 25 the range. Waves generally 6 to 8, 6 to 9 feet. A little less though, in north wind there, Norton Sound waves 3 to 4 feet. And on Wednesday, winds will be out of the northeast around 20 knots, a little stronger back towards St. Paul, St. George, and St. Matthew, 25 to 30 knot winds, and waves generally in the 6 to 8 foot range, though a little higher, around 13 feet there, St. Matthew. Across the Arctic coast, winds will generally be out of the north 10 to 15 knots with ice in place. As we go down through the Chukchi Sea, winds along the northwest coast off of Kotzebue Sound and Wales, winds will be out of the north at 15 to 20 knots, waves 3 to 4 feet, as high as 8 feet north side of St. Lawrence. And then as we come down the area on Wednesday, winds will continue to be generally out of the northwest along the Arctic coast with the ice in place, and a bit more variable northerly along the northwest coast, Point Lay 3-footers, but also northerly there approaching the Bering Strait around 20 knots, waves 4 to as high as 7 feet on the north end of St. Lawrence and off of Port Clarence. Here's the weather map for Tuesday afternoon. Shows the low out over the north central Gulf. This is the feature that's going to fling the plume of moisture up into the panhandle, producing the heavier snowfall. Look for the stronger winds approaching the panhandle Tuesday afternoon and evening, and also developing on the backside of the low, the stronger gap and outflow winds from the Susitna Valley on down through Cook Inlet. We could see some wind gusts approaching hurricane force, certainly storm force winds there at the mouth of Cook Inlet, the Barren Islands between Homer and Kodiak, with a wind chill advisory. Wind chills could get down as cold as 35 to near 50 below late Tuesday night through early Thursday morning.
These forecasts are for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating.